Hola a todos, buenos días. Gracias por otro webinar más.
Sorry.
En esta ocasión vamos a hablar sobre una tecnología ALR de Screen Innovation. En esta ocasión nos acompaña el señor Manfred, que es la persona con la cual nos va a platicar sobre esta tecnología. Les recuerdo que este webinar es en inglés. Como siempre, las preguntas y las respuestas las haremos al final, por favor. Entonces, ok, Manfred, all yours.
Thank you. Good morning from north of the border, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Manfred Freiberger, native German, as the name predicts. Here a little overview of my career so far in the projection screen industries. Most significant are the latest three: Stuart Film Screen, DNP Denmark, and now since 2006, Screen Innovations. I'm the International Sales Director, and welcome you kindly to our presentation, or to my presentation of ALR made by Screen Innovations. I try to talk as slowly as I can, and if you have any questions you just heard, I'm more than happy to answer all of those at the end of this presentation. ALR are two letters that popped up in the industry a few years ago. All of a sudden we had ambient light rejecting screens and ambient light rejecting technology. ALR officially stands for ambient light rejection. Well, in terms of reality, it's more like technology that rejects, not rejects, but reflects and redirects light. So when light hits something, we direct it to the other side or wherever we want to go to, or we reflect it off the surface. But rejection is probably a tough term, because in my opinion, if we reject light, we close a door or we close a window. So, but that aside, you will see along the way that it's more about reflection and redirection. So the first question may come up: why SI? Why Screen Innovations? Maybe because of this. We are meanwhile the leader in ALR technology. We have lots of dealers across the country in the United States and many other countries. I think we do a lot of things right. We create product that customers like, that customers need even more. And we also have great customer service. So there's statistics here that was conducted in 2019. CE Pro here in America made a survey what integrators in this country believe is the best manufacturer and the best manufacturer to work with. 2018, we were 4 points ahead of Stuart Film Screen. Now we're 14 points ahead of Stuart Film Screen. You see, we're an active team, and we like to work with our partners in the industry worldwide. Here may be another reason. We have no stickers on our products saying made in China. All our products are made in Austin, Texas, and that goes for all electric screens, framed screens, but also for our shade program that you probably are aware of on our website. And then there are other, advantages and other things that we do. We have very fast delivery times, 2 weeks on our frame screen, 3 weeks on motorized. We have 24 hours customer service. Having product for the commercial and residential market, including custom solutions that are not even listed on the website anywhere or in any catalog. For sure, we have best and most ALR screens on the market, and are the only manufacturer who actually can redirect, reflect, or reject, if you want to use that term, vertically and horizontally. No one else can do that in the industry. And all our fabrics are absolutely stunningly in their performance. So we call them self-reference standard screen fabrics. that we provide as the leaders on ALR. If these guys trust us in the International Space Station, we believe that anyone else on Earth can trust us too. So this is indeed the first screen in space. That is a project from 2015, when we were asked by NASA to develop a screen that will last a long time in space. Not only was this fabric, it was also the whole mechanics with suspension and so forth. But the still you see here in this picture, the screen is still the same when we shipped it up into space. So we're the only manufacturer also having a screen in space. Proudly, we can say, meanwhile, that as we reached out to many countries in the world, that we are represented now in 80 countries around the globe. We are very well covered in Europe. We are in Australia, New Zealand, we're in South Africa, we're in Morocco, we're in the Middle East, South America, and Mexico. And one more time, thanks for attending. Let me give you a couple of examples here. These are two case studies where you might believe that this can only be handled by LED walls and not by projection. So what you see here is a large cathedral in the United States. You'll see these two displays here on the left and on the right side. Ladies and gentlemen, these are real projected images. This is not anything that is rendered and stuff. We're projecting on it. And when we have a closer look, you'll see, well, maybe going back, these are framed and mounted on the wall. No, they're not. This is a motorized screen, and that's our 0G product. You see here, I have a shell, so on top of this image, here's a roller at the bottom of the image, a heavy-duty roller. You see the string here, and it continues up to the ceiling here. And this screen, same on the other side for the other screen, obviously, drops for almost 5 meters. The material here that you see is a slate 1.2 material. There's lots of light in the whole cathedral. There's lots of light even next to the screen, and the image is totally unaffected by it. Here's a project in Germany, in Berlin. This is a subway station, one of the most known subway stations in the world, because it has a historical meaning when the city of Berlin and the country was separated. So the project was to install a digital signage kind of wonderland in this train station. And the requirement at the bottom was for 12 displays on the right and on the left side, so 6 on each side. Criteria were 180 degrees horizontal viewing, no reflection of the screen surface, and you know, the most important thing here was that the whole train station is a historic building, so we needed to have it fit exactly on the millimeter in this kind of opening. They're all the same here, and those were criteria that couldn't get done with LED panels. And you see on the other side how nicely this all fits in here. So these are all our black diamond materials that we used for it. And going back one more time, you see the projectors up here, Epson projectors in an aluminum enclosure projecting such a wonderful image. And you see all these here do not have any reflection. So projection is still alive, ladies and gentlemen. And ALR technology, if you use it right, can challenge any LED display for sure. So let's talk about some myths about projection in general. First of all, projection screens cannot be used with the lights on. Well, we just saw it, of course we can. And since about, let's say 10 years, this is gone because due to the development in the ALR market. To say it in the beginning, we have different types, obviously, of ALR screens. If it comes to optical screens, just like Black Diamond, what you just saw here in on the previous slide, there's only 2 manufacturers who have the optical technology for such a screen, and that is DNP in Denmark and Screen Innovations in Austin, Texas. The difference is we can control ambient light horizontally and vertically. The competitor cannot. They're only focusing on vertical control, not on horizontal control. So please, number 2, a screen is just an accessory to the projector. It's not. This is an example what we do on our roadshows internationally, and we have here a situation in Norway, in Europe, where we had a 120-inch widescreen projected onto by a 20,000 lumen Barco projector. On top of that, we used a 500-watt burner here across at a steeper angle of the projection screen and creates the shadow of the presenter here. I took the picture and we talked about 20 minutes, and then I told them, hey, we forgot we should show some samples. I said, oh yeah, okay. So the pictures was projected on a real wide screen. I see the horizontal lines here, nothing fancy, just a standard product. And then we put up our black diamond samples here, and boom, all of a sudden we had contrast. All of a sudden we had black level. All of a sudden we had yellow colors, vibrant colors, and this is like a much better image than what you see here surrounding it. Before we used the sample, no one in the room said a word. After this, everyone was open and was shocked and said, "Why? How does that happen?" So I asked the question back, ladies and gentlemen, what did we do to the projector? And I said, nothing. We didn't do anything to the projector. You would have probably expected such an image here from a 20,000 lumen projector where you spend about $30,000 to $35,000 on, but we presented you with a white material here, and it did not even look close to that. All we did was changing the fabric, and all of a sudden, this image looked like you would have expected from the projector. No, the projector is a light source. The projector gives you brightness, but contrast is generated on the screen. And you have to select that very carefully, obviously with the support from us here as the manufacturer. But if you have the right combination of a projection screen that costs a little more or a little more than more, but that will give you the real value of the projector. If you don't do it and stuck with this, why did you spend that much money just creating such an image? So the screen is responsible for the contrast, and contrast is the difference between the darkest black and the brightest white. And you see what a difference here make. You know, we turned such an image with one click, so to speak, holding up the sample and turn it into such an image with vibrant colors and high contrast like this. This is what you want to expect from your projector when you spend a lot of money. Also, when you have a home theater, you need a projection screen that provides you with contrast. And without contrast, there is no ambient light control. And that whole thing developed when we all of a sudden got out of the dark rooms in the commercial area, and needed to develop screens, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So the question is, how does a projector project black? Did you ever think about it? A projector cannot project black. Black is simply the absence of light. So it's a little joke sometimes. We tell people, like, take your light bulb, you know, connect it to an outlet and then try to make it black. Yeah, you pull the plug, that's what you do. But the black, the contrast is coming from the screen. So the screen is not important. That myth is gone. It's a very important factor in the projection system, obviously, because the screen is what you are watching 100% of the time. How many times are you looking at the projector? Maybe once when it will be installed. Other than that, you press a button to start it, and or push a remote to start the projector, but the image is what you watch 100% of the time. Is that not perfect? Is that not worth the investment? Then the projector, doesn't perform to its best potential. So think about it. We'll talk about it for the next half hour, and if you have any questions, ask them after we are done. A next myth says that a gray screen can increase contrast. First and foremost, and gray screens are still around, and you should use them. Not too much in high ambient light, but in moderate light. But can it increase contrast? So a real good looking image consists of 3 components, which is the contrast, and you have the gray scale, the brightest white, and the darkest black. And in this grayscale, all these colors on a colorful image are incorporated. So if you make the right choice, you will get the right answer, so to speak, the right response from the projection screen. So the human eye is obviously what turns this into an experience and sends it to the brain. And then the contrast will, and I'll demonstrate it to you right now, not increase, but we can fool the eye by the following way. If this, for example, is our brightest white, and the grayscale goes up to, like, say here, or this will be our black level of the projection screen, and a contrast ratio maybe 30:1 in a dark environment, that's fine. What we do now with gray screens is we change the tint. So it's no longer white, it's something like a gray tone about here, I would say. But if this part does not exist, right, and this will be your white on the projection screen, on the gray screen, the brain consider this is white. What we do though is we move the white from here to there, and at the same time as this is our white level, we also push the black level into the deeper black. Like, say we end up here or even here. So if you look at that screen, then that will look high contrast like it does on this side. So that's the black level. Although the whites, we just move it into a darker area. That's what we do. So the eye conceives that what she sees as the brightest light on the projection screen should be the white, and it is correct with that. And the darkest black is all of a sudden a darker tint, a darker black level. So the brain sends it then back to the eye and says, hey, you remember all this, right? Here's a checkerboard. Here are brighter white squares, 12 of them, and there are 12 darker squares, 12 of them. So if you look at A and B, you will probably consider that B is logically maybe darker than A. Let's compare the gray tone, and it's not. That's how we fool legally the eye and the brain by remembering this should be brighter than that, but in reality it's not. That's why we're not calling it a real contrast. This is a perceived contrast, and there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, we have magicians who do magic, and we do our magic here in projection technology. So that's what a gray screen does for you. It gives you a better tint. It gives you not higher contrast. It gives you the perceived impression of a higher contrast. That's what it is, you know. But look at this. This is really lots of detail here on the jeans and then on the wall. And this is just a black and white picture that's really clean and saturated. Our hair is dark, and this is my all-time personal favorite picture in terms of contrast presentation. This animal here, you know how brightly it smiles almost in the camera. So I have high contrast. This is white and this is black. See that? You can perceive the same here. You know, this is not as white as there. You know, you have all the herd in the back with a low contrast and the high contrast image of an animal in the front. So now, how do we measure, excuse me, as we call it, the room contrast? So in a pitch black room, old school, you measure all the 12 white fields first with a spot meter in total dark environment. Write all these individual numbers down and take the average number. The average number would be your white. Then you do the same with the black squares here, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 12. No, we only have 8 years. This is not the right checkerboard. But then you measure all these numbers here, the values, and set it, get the average number of that, and that will be your contrast ratio. It could be 1 to 30, it could be 1 to 25. We'll talk about it later. This is how you measure the room contrast. To give you an idea of different contrast levels, I've put together here a graphic that shows you different gray scales, so to speak, totally gray to black image and a colored image. How does it differentiate itself? How does it do in 5 steps from 5 to 1 contrast to 20 to 1 contrast? You may have not thought it is that significant, the difference here. You see how it's all more grayish, washed out, and you go to 10, you get to see more detail. But if you come to 20 to 1, you see really dark, you know, the head here is black and the shadow here is visible. Here you cannot even sense it. And the same goes for color, obviously, because that's all working together. And you see the real color, blue and red here have more depth and more intensity almost than a low contrast image. So contrast is what we perceive as a good or bad image. Brightness has nothing to do with it, really. So on the left is now one more time an example for color detail and image detail. You know, this is a typical, like late in the year fall image, and compare this to a high contrast, probably before or after rain almost, house in the all green near a forest, and you have all these details here, just like, oh my, you know, you can see the wall structure and the ceiling roof structure here and the leaves and things. So that's our goal. This is looking like an HDR image, and all this is technically possible and resolvable these times. So where do we come from? Let me spend a few minutes here on history. Those who are in the industry a little longer might remember this. This is the 70s. Don't think this is a picture of me. No, it's not. But this is where it started with all these projectors, or a slide projector, and our ultra portable, which is not obviously overhead projectors and things. Those were the apparatuses we had in the 80s. The first silver screen came around, and all of a sudden we had a slightly curved silver screen here built in the furniture, and it pointed all, I think it was a gain of 18 towards a seating location right in front of it. There was only one person who really could see it all. The commercial industry changed the whole perspective with the demand to project under ambient light conditions, because almost monthly, weekly, sometimes daily for a week, we had to sit in 8 hours of darkness to present our presentations in a pitch black room. But it's such a fatigue after hours and hours, and you couldn't see anything, and except for the projected image, you couldn't write, you couldn't read. This technology of Fresnel and Ingle screens changed the game at that time in the 80s. How it worked, it was a projector on the back. This was all rear projection. The Fresnel lens collected the light from behind, hit the screen, and the Fresnel lens bended the light to run the light in the shortest way possible directly through the screen body. And depending on the shape, curvature and peaks and stuff, the light would be distributed in the room, more narrow or more wider. Well, we didn't have a computer, so at that time we folded light path, and if you have a large image and the projector has a throwing distance of, let's say, 8 meters, there was no much room. So we used projection front coated mirrors We shot onto one mirror, second mirror, and then through the screen, rear projection screen, and could even tilt in so the light would bend towards the seating position. Our projectors then were these big monsters of CRT projectors, RGB, 3 colors mixed together to calibrate the projector. We had to do all 3 colors on the same grid. But look at the resolution that we had then. And it maintained the brightness up to 10,000 hours already, and the black levels were significant, and the color reproduction was fabulous. The only downside was 200 lumens. So if we put 2 together, we came almost close to 400 lumens. Yeah, but the price for these, they started for an entry-level product for 10,000, and for a commercial projector was 60 and even $90,000. But we could create all these beautiful quad rooms, and it opened the gateway to a simulation projection and rear projection for boardroom simulators and stuff with mirror systems look like this. The home theater started in the 1990s when they for the first time used these projectors with a bouncing mirror and a cheap plastic screen to create a large television for that. And then in the 90s, finally we got digital, and here is the first projector prototype of an LCD projector. That's the first unit ever built for LCD. And quickly the home theater market turned the dreams of recreating a cinema experience into a home theater experience with all this technology. This was probably for the home theater what the rear projection Fresnel lenticular technology was. This was the move for the home theater business step forward to pay a lot of attention to projection screens. All of a sudden, we had in-ceiling screens, we had on-ceiling screens, we had side tensioning, we had masking, black masking, we had side tensioning here to keep the motors flat and the screen flat, and the screen was no longer considered an accessory. It's a similar time, like if you look at it now with the development of ALR. All of a sudden, fortunately, people paid attention to the projection screen. You know, even consultants selected the screen very, very thoughtful and recommended, you know, higher quality to the projector's light output. So it happened that at some point, people, and it happened very frequently, that people paid more for a projection screen than they paid for a projector. And you know why? Simply because of the product quality that was important to the people. Because of education also, we educated people. We had people like Joe Kane and Joe Silva doing lectures that were sold out in advance with 200 people in a room and stuff. We created a lot of awareness. So if you go out to your dealer, to your customers, make them aware of what's available in projection technology today. What they knew from the past is no longer relevant. What is important is that we have the ability to still recreate the dream of the home theater in the dark with wonderful neutral color, full color reproductive white materials and gray materials, but now you can take it outside and you put it even in your living room, your kitchen, for a small screen, or anywhere, even outside sometimes, with an ALR product. And if you present it right, and we have the tools, and I'll show you one of them before we end this year, you have the ability to combine screen and projector correctly for the customer satisfaction and make them aware of the projector really provides the light, but the quality is generated, the quality of the image is generated on the projection screen. So, and that's such an image. You remember what I just showed you, image quality? This is how it can look today. You pay a lot of attention, meanwhile, to framing, make it thin and, you know, create just, you see a little bit of reflection, but it's such a bright environment there. You know, still you get high contrast. So we have all the tools we need today to create the best image possible for all these wonderful projectors we have, meanwhile, access to. So let me tell you what type of screen technology and fabrics are available today. We still have our white diffusion screens. Show you the names and labels and numbers in a little bit. We have our gray screens, which gives you a little bit the impression of higher contrast, but it gives you better black levels, and you can use this in lightly lit environment, but light controlled environment. Then we have our first angular diffusion technology, which is the vinyl version of an ALR screen. All these three here are vinyl based, PVC, okay? White, gray, and angular diffusion. Those are all materials that are coated, sprayed. We can make them very, very large. We can make large screens up to meters, up to almost 5 meters, 4.8 meters. Width is never an issue, but all these screens are for home theater and for the commercial market, and we'll show you right after. And then, as I mentioned earlier, there are the optical screens. Optical screens are not coated. That's not vinyl material. This is metal-based material. In other words, we have to print them. So that's one thing why, that's one reason why there are not so many manufacturers offering optical screens, because it's a huge investment and takes a long time to make them to perfection. Meanwhile, our black diamond, the most known ALR material on the market, is in its 30th generation. We always continue to fine tune here and there, and now meanwhile it's the best and highest contrast screens on the market. Again, let me repeat, if you hear from other manufacturers, yes, there's only one manufacturer, DNP, who has their Supernova 0.8 material, which is a very nice looking product indeed. But it can only reject light in the vertical direction, not horizontally. Not horizontally. So let's look into this. What does a widescreen do? As we saw earlier in my presentation, where we held the sample up, white and gray materials are called kind of like with 1.0 gain, an ideal Lambertian screen, because it reflects the light 180 degrees horizontally and vertically in the room. So you will get a very even picture for that. The white screen is made only to be used in the dark, and the gray diffusion material is used in a controlled ambient light situation, so very minimal light. And this is also always geared towards creating the contrast. You may sense some content, but you don't have these colorful high contrast image. It's not possible. So here's a framed example. So the other question is now, while we have white and gray diffusions in the dark room, what does an optical ALR screen do for us in the dark? Imagine the following. You have a pitch black room, the projector, the screen is here, the light hits the projection screen reflects the light off the ceiling, the light bounces back, hits the screen again, and washes it out to a certain degree. So let me show you an example here. We have it on our website, which is, while I start the video, I will explain to you what happens here. This is a pitch black room.
This is actually what you're seeing here is a standard matte white.
This is a pitch black room in our old, it's a few years old. But you see that there is light bouncing from this projection screen to the ceiling. This is a motorized screen with a white fabric. The white fabric reflects the light to the ceiling and bounces back on the screen. That's why you see some reflection here. You can see Ryan here and Blake here in the room. But even a dark painted ceiling reflects 5% of light. Now we roll the screen up. This is a black diamond 0.8 material. Look what happened at the ceiling. That's a black room. That's a totally pitch black room. So if there is some light or reflective surfaces, you know, an ALR screen can even do wonders in a pitch black room. So you see that, as I said, black paint reflects light. Don't think it does not. If you want to have a pitch black home theater, you should have some fabric or some special design with uneven surfaces and so forth. But in a smaller environment, even a black painted ceiling can reflect light. Anyway, so what we do with the what we call the slate 1.2 and slate 08 material and slate XL material, which is the diffusion product of our ALR screens. This is the most universal screen on the market for use in ambient light control. You can use this in the dark. You can use this in the highest environment you can imagine. It's a 3-layer coated product with an opaque layer at the back. So that prevents light from behind hitting the reflective layer, which is the second coated layer. And the front consists of a very, very difficult to make seriously front layer. So this layer here accepts the projected light, runs it to the body, and reflects off the center layer to reflect the light back in the room. So you have a front coated layer that transmits all the light, but also a rear projection coating on the back that allows the light to come out again, including a gray tint that provides you with a contrast image. So that sounds like easy. It's not, obviously, because not too many have those. But this is our slate product, and we can make it very, very large, up to 4.8 meters high. As I said, we have XL material for that. We have a 1.2 and a 0.8 material. So wonderful product. And here graphically, this makes it maybe even more obvious. You know, the light here from this window shines onto the screen, reflects onto the side. This is old rule, and that's still true today, obviously, because it's just like physics. You know, the light reflects off the surface the same angle it hits the surface, angle in versus angle out. So, and that's what you see here in the vertical direction from this projector. It hits the screen, reflects off the screen, off the surface, and you see here when it comes down at an angle, it also goes down at an angle, and it's exactly the spot where you are watching the movie. So I can't show you the technology, how it really works, but these screens are indeed 7-8 layers of optical prisms and filters, and you know what, it's highly complicated, and obviously it's proprietary, so I can't show you exactly how it's made, but I promise you it's true. I know how these are made, but it's just not possible. But there is a reason, as I said earlier, that there's these two manufacturers only who have the technology. A company like Stuart, for example, who does only the wonderful vinyl materials, will not invest into anything that you know, what lead them in that direction. But you also hear from other manufacturers like Daylight, they have an optical screen, and Parallax, but that's an OEM product from DNP. DNP a couple of years ago opened up to sell their technology, their finished screens, to other manufacturers, and who simply renamed and rebadged the product and sell it under their own brand name. But it's not that they can manufacture these products. It's very, very, very difficult. So to round this up now, I want to show you a couple of pictures here where ambient light screens have been used. Here again, our train station in Berlin. This is a very bright, true picture, by the way, in a conference room, 5 Series motorized maybe, and all the lights are on. The image is still stunningly rich of contrast. This is a 150-inch slate XL material in the TLC Austin location. So you see on the left where it's installed, and you see here all these white panels surrounding the surface, and the glass is right next to the screen here. Well, look at this. This is a very, very watchable contrast image. In such an environment, it's just a magical experience to see what projection can do for you. Even the projector hangs under the ceiling, and light is just absolutely everywhere. Then we have motorized screens. You see here how nicely the viewing angles look in training rooms. This is our flex glass. This is our rigid, semi-rigid rear projection material. We can make this up to 2.5, 2.6 meters tall and 30 meters long. Don't have to use the whole material. We obviously can do it in smaller increments, like 150, 120 inches diagonal as well. But the quality of the screen is it's outstanding. There's nothing you cannot do with it. You have all projector technologies: short throw, ultra short throw, regular projector throw screens. Everything works with flex glass, and you see it rejects ambient light. It's totally open on the top and light. This is an Infocom show in Thailand, by the way, and the images here still look wonderfully rich in colors, and the whites are fantastic. So this is a product that can ship actually rolled up, and such a long screen. This is a 20 meters long screen, just to think, under 2 meters tall. We shipped in a box 1 meter diameter. So another example, even flex glass again, here in a TV studio in the Czech Republic in Europe. So this is the front, and this is how it looks in the back with mirror system. Still today, they use it, nothing wrong with it. It looks absolutely fabulous. This is, and you guessed it, certainly a picture taken in the US. This customer here had a sliding door, and what he did, he was using our black diamond film and laminated it onto the back of the glass. That's easily done for a glazier, not so easy in this size for an end user to do. But if you do that, you can watch movies or sports event like this customer does here in total bright light. First of all, you sit on the outside, not in this rainy conditions as it looks like it's here, but the room behind the screen is not dark at all. You can use our black diamond film in a pitch bright room environment, and the projection screen will still produce such a high contrast image on the front. Here's an image, and that concludes it for me here with a Slate XL on our in Austin, Texas, when we released the product. Look at this. This is huge hall here with all reflective surface and window front on that side. The screen is 375 inches diagonal. Let's see what a wonderful high contrast image the screen here produces. So, and that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes my ALR presentation. and hand it over to NOVOTECH. If you have any questions, I'm still here, can answer it. Go ahead.
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Okay. Jorge Valdez asked, what is the best material to generate the best contrast on the projection screens?
The best product, the highest contrast in the industry is provided by Black Diamond. We have that in 3 flavors, 0.8, 1.4, and XL. Black Diamond 0.8 and 1.4 go up to 120 inches, 3 meters diagonal size. Black Diamond XL goes up to 150 inches in size, diagonal. Black Diamond,
Okay.
as I mentioned, has this optical structure, is this multi-layer product with filters and prisms. You only can use it on a frame. We can ship it rolled up, the material I mean, but only soft, not really tight. In other words, you cannot use Black Diamond or such a optical screen, that goes the same for Supernova, on a motorized screen. That's impossible. Just imagine when this rolls up on a roller, there's a lot of stress. There's a lot of stress, particularly at the top of the roller tube. And this stress, when the whole material is rolled up over time, creates so much pressure that these optical filters degrade. In other words, they reflect light weirdly in all directions. And through that, over time, you would see a horizontal band that's wide in the center and gets smaller on the side, but in a pattern of almost every kind of 30 centimeters, if that's the case, and repeats itself from top to bottom. So Black Diamond is by far the best contrast material on the market if you use it on a frame.
Okay, thank you. More questions for the same people. Jorge Vélez. What is the best color for the walls on the cinema room?
The best colors, you mean the wall colors or the tint of a projection screen?
Sorry?
What do you mean, the wall colors, or do you mean a tint, the projection screen tint color, or
The wall.
the wall color?
Yeah.
Well, obviously, it's the darker the better. But you also have to pay attention to the lighting in the room. If the room is pitch black, obviously it should be pitch black. But that can be in any kind of form. It's not necessarily only a tint. You can use drape, you can use panels to make it dark. Most importantly is that the light cannot be reflected. So the darker, obviously, the better. And if you have lights, down lights are the best to use. And it also has an effect of how far the walls are away from the projection screen, and also how tall the room is. The taller the better, obviously. So yeah, the darker the better.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? ¿Alguna otra pregunta que tengan para Manfred? En cuanto a la pregunta de lo del link de la grabación, les comento como siempre, normalmente lo que hacemos es unos días después de este webinar, nosotros lo subimos a nuestra página en YouTube y ahí pueden ver cuántas veces sea necesario este webinar. Siempre los grabamos y los subimos a nuestra página. We are not more questions, Manfred.
Okay.
Okay.
That's fine.
Bueno, thank you. Les recordamos que este es una serie de 3 webinars. Este es el primero. Mañana tenemos otro webinar más, que sería el de pantallas motorizadas, sería a la misma hora. Y pasado mañana tenemos otro más. Entonces, les recuerdo, esta es una serie de 3 webinars y con todo gusto los esperamos el día de mañana. No more questions, Manfred. Okay? Thank you. Thank you. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, for sure.
Okay. Bueno, gracias a todos. Por favor, cuídense mucho. Gracias por su tiempo y los esperamos mañana. Hasta luego.
Hasta luego.
See you.
Yep.